This recent NIL news, to me, confirms that Jackson Arnold was the right move for Hugh Freeze.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Lindsay Crosby joining us as he does every single Monday. We'll talk about Auburn's newest addition to the 2026 class, the fast, electric Devin Carter. He can be really special on the Plains, as well as I want to take a snapshot kind of back at what Hugh Freeze did this past transfer portal window, specifically at the quarterback. Kind of a continuation of what we're going to start the show talking about today. And that's Auburn's footing in the quarterback market when it came to NIL, Lindsay. The big recent news, the latest domino to fall over the course of this transfer portal window was former Georgia quarterback Carson Beck entering the portal. There was a lot of chatter about him going to Texas Tech. No, he's going to Miami. And there's a deal supposedly being reported it's around $4 million in NIL money for him to leave Georgia and go to Miami. And I just want everybody to rewind. Let's go back a few weeks, Lindsay, if you don't mind. Let's just go back a few weeks to where SEC media, national media, and it was a big deal. I got texts like crazy about it when folks were saying, oh my goodness, Jackson Arnold's getting what? Some people were saying 2 million. Some people were reporting 1.5 million. It's not 2 million. I'll tell you that right now. But still, the narrative was like Auburn spent what on Jackson Arnold? And then you're starting to see more and more of these deals that quarterbacks are getting. And I'll tell you what, I'm not saying Jackson Arnold is pound for pound better than Carson Beck. But as far as the value goes, I think Auburn was ahead of the curve of where this market actually is.
Yeah, you're absolutely now in a position in college football where it's not just who is the best player, but what are you getting for the price you're paying? Welcome to the world that the NFL, that MLB, that everybody has played in for so many years.
Yes.
It is not just get the best possible player. Mm-hmm. It is what can you afford and who is the best value for that. And what's really fun, and I feel like it touches on your point here, is unlike all those other sports, college football is still so new to this that you're able, if you can accurately predict and read the market, like it looks like Auburn did,
right?
You're able to go out there and get a guy on what could be a very, very good deal for you in the long run. Is Carson Beck better than Jackson Arnold? Maybe. Coming off of a torn UCL, I don't even want to say absolutely he is, but
not twice as good.
Not at least twice as good.
It's not at least twice as good. I'll tell you that right now. Now, of course, this is where it's different from professional sports outside of baseball, where in professional sports, everybody's salary cap is the same. It's different here, obviously, but we all assume, and it's all been reported, and I mean, I think the proof is in the pudding when you look at recruiting, both from high school and in the portal, that Auburn is clearly respectable and extremely competitive when it comes to NIL. People aren't leaving despite a rough season. Like, there's a lot of things we can kind of highlight to say clearly Auburn is putting its money where its mouth is, literally, on this front. Or I don't think they'd be able to have this roster based off of Hugh Freeze's first 2 years here. So I don't think it's a crazy thing to say. But when you look across the landscape, and Auburn was pretty aggressive. They were pretty aggressive early on when it came to the quarterback market in the portal, to the extent of they kind of got the ball rolling, and they got Jackson Arnold on campus, and we'll talk about Malik Murphy's impact on this in a second too, but they got him on campus and they didn't let him leave, Lindsay. They didn't let him leave. And to me, I kind of think Jackson Arnold would have gotten more money if he had waited, because there are other guys like the Bo Prabula kid from Missouri, who's fine. I think he was a backup at Penn State. He's reportedly getting $1.5 million, which is kind of in the reported ballpark of what Jackson Arnold's getting. Mm-hmm. And Jackson Arnold's upside's way higher than this kid. I think, and so to me, it's like, I don't know. You just kind of saw everybody kind of hush when, as soon as like more of these numbers popped up, it's like, oh, maybe that's just the market. And Auburn actually probably got a pretty good deal on Jackson Arnold.
Yeah. Braves fans are going to appreciate this crossover here. Outside of this offseason, Atlanta's like free agency pursuit has been, as soon as free agency starts, we jump and there's these couple guys that we've identified and we go out early. We sign them to a deal that is generous, but we get them locked up early. And then as soon as all of the big names start signing, you realize how much more expensive everything was than you were expecting. And this deal looks even better in retrospect. And that's kind of where Auburn is here, right? They got Jackson Arnold. And like you said, early, everybody's clowning on Auburn. And then you see, oh, Carson Beck has 2/3 of a UCL and he's getting $4 million. He won't even be able to throw a football until April. And he's getting $4 million. All of a sudden, Jackson Arnold for 1.5 or 2 doesn't look that bad by comparison. Yeah. And that's where
a dude who had the talent of a Georgia roster around him. I mean, like, can you talk about like two totally different scenarios of what Carson Beck had around him?
Can I make
what Jackson Arnold had around him in Oklahoma? Yeah, go ahead.
Really interesting observation here. So Carson Beck's stats in 2023 were much better in almost every respect, right? Not the number of touchdowns, right? But like yardage, yards per attempt, all of that stuff.
2023 compared to what?
Compared to 2024, when he had Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers. I mean, and when those two NFLers left, he threw twice the number of interceptions. He threw for less yards per attempt. All of that stuff was worse. It reminds me a lot of some of the conversation we had about Peyton Thorne's Michigan State time in year 1 versus year 2. He lost Keon Coleman, some other NFL guys, and all of a sudden,
Jalen Reed with the Packers.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, he looked a lot worse in year 2. And then he came to Auburn and ultimately didn't live up to expectations. And that was without a UCL injury. I'm just saying, it feels like Carson Beck in Miami. There's a very clear path to this not working out for the Hurricanes.
I don't think it makes sense. Like, I don't get it. But like Miami was in a situation where it's like, who else are they going to get at this point? Like they ran out of guys, unless like, were they the school that reportedly offered Quinn Ewers, all that money into the portal? Who knows? But
there was a story in The Athletic. They had other options and they turned them down for Carson Beck.
Yeah. And so I just think when you look across the landscape of college football, Carson Beck, Mensa, SI reported that Mensa, the former Tulane quarterback, went to Duke, of course, where Malik Murphy left, and they're offering him $4 million a year over 2 years, an $8 million deal. And it's like, that dude, I think Mensa's good. I do think it's a little like weird that nobody called him, like we didn't call him, but like maybe he got an $8 million deal from Duke and he didn't answer any other calls. I certainly wouldn't blame him for that. I don't think we would have offered him that. I hope we wouldn't have, but it's like, I'd rather have Jackson Arnold than that guy, especially for half the price, at least more than half the price. Like, to me, it's like the narrative around Hugh Freeze handling quarterbacks in the portal, like from a value standpoint, Jackson Arnold's got to do it, but you've got to say the same thing about all these guys. Like Carson Beck's got to do it at Miami,
and do it without Spring.
Right. And so when you just take everything into consideration, it's like, I think Hugh Freeze nailed it. Now, can he get the scheme right? Can they learn the offense? Can they create a good offensive unit as a whole? That's the next question. But as far as NIL and as far as value, it's really hard to kind of say, I don't know. Props to Coach Freeze and on the victory and everybody involved with that. Because now in hindsight, it looks like a big win. And I want to kind of, now that we know, and Auburn's like, we got Eric Singleton and Horatio Fields and the rest of this, this transfer portal class. I do want to look back at that week, that pivotal week / weekend leading up to Jackson Arnold signing, because I think it's super interesting now. That's next right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Intuit TurboTax. Lindsay, question. You like doing taxes? Are they fun?
I've never once said doing taxes is fun, and I'm a money guy.
Yeah. Taxes, it's so easy now with TurboTax. They pair you with an expert. I mean, how many times are you going through all these stacks of papers that you get mailed or you print out and you're like, do I actually need this? What do I do with this? How nice would it be if you could just ask somebody, Lindsay, say a point blank, like, hey, do you need this? Like, when I send you all my stuff, do you need this? It'd be super handy. Be super handy to have. They've got an expert who's backed with the latest technology, which cross-checks millions of data points for 100% accuracy. And while they work on your taxes, you get real-time updates on their progress, and you get you get the most money back guaranteed, which is really the thing that we care most about. So get an expert now at TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantee. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. So let's go back to when we were having the debate on, like, okay, is Jackson Arnold the guy? This is before he committed on that Saturday morning.
Mm-hmm.
There was a discussion between Malik Murphy and Jackson Arnold. That was like the big discussion. And at the time, I had Malik Murphy at 1A, and then slightly behind him, I had Jackson Arnold at 1B. I liked the floor that Murphy had more than Jackson Arnold's. Malik Murphy since then has signed with Oregon State, and there's just like no buzz whatsoever. I thought he would end up in the SEC. And so, like, clearly the perception that I had and that several Auburn fans had isn't the same sentiment that the SEC had, which I think is telling. I mean, Oregon State, I think they're fine. They're fine. Are they even in a real conference right now, though? Like, I think just everything about the move of the value that they got Jackson Arnold at and who they picked Jackson Arnold over, it seems to be clearer and clearer, because who knows, man? Like, with the money that they potentially saved in getting Jackson Arnold early, I mean, what happens if you don't get an Eric Singleton or Horatio Fields or any of these, talented guys that they got via the portal? I just think in hindsight's 2020, the Jackson Arnold move looks better and better just because of the holistic view of what they did in the portal.
Yeah, that's the other side of this conversation, is what else could you get with that money? I mean, I was pulling up one of the recruiting sites. I'm not going to name them. They're not paying us for this. Their transfer portal player rankings. Eric Singleton's a top four player in the portal, right? Carson Beck was number 1, but Eric Singleton's a top 4 player in the portal. They had Carson Beck number 1. I don't know why either. He's hurt. I don't get it. But do you get a top 4 player if you have to pay more money than what you pay Jackson Arnold? I keep bringing it back to baseball, but this is what I know and love. The New York Yankees did not re-sign Juan Soto. He's getting a stupidly huge contract. By the way, if you have kids, give your kids a baseball bat, because the dude's making $700 million guaranteed.
No kidding. But I mean, I do like that you're comparing it to baseball and not the NFL, because that is a thing that people say, like, oh, well, college football is just NFL now. No, and that's not true.
They're all on a neutral playing ground in the NFL.
Yeah. The Tennessee Titans can spend the same amount of money as any big team. Kansas City, New England, doesn't matter what it is.
Cowboys, yeah.
Yeah, Dallas, sure. Same with the NBA. The Lakers spend the same amount of money as the Memphis Grizzlies. Like, okay, whatever. And they've got rules as far as, the first and second apron. I don't really know all the details on it, but they all have the same financial rules as each other. Baseball's not that way. No. And college football is not that way. Auburn has made it very clear they have more money to spend than almost every program that plays Division I football. Almost every single. I mean, Kyle and I have had this conversation saying that they're probably like 12 to 15. Based off of the last 2 years, I think they're higher than that. And to me, like, when you talk about, the Yankees have a better shot to get these guys than, the Kansas City Royals or the Tampa Rays or whatever. So, like, but Auburn's closer to the Yankees than they are the Royals. And, like, that's what matters here. And when you combine that when you combine that with they're getting a quarterback who I think is just a hair behind Carson Beck, but healthy.
Yeah.
For half the price, and they clearly made the right decision on this. I just think when you have those compounded wins, it's gonna matter somewhere, or at least give you a shot.
Yeah, and a guy you can have for multiple seasons. Carson Beck is looking at his last year before the NFL. Like, matter of fact, he had declared for the NFL and then pulled back out of the portal to go to Miami. And you got Arnold early at a good price, and you had the money to get Singleton and some other guys. The comparison with the Yankees there was they didn't re-sign Juan Soto, but they went out and got a former MVP in Paul Goldschmidt for first base. They got Max Fried of the Braves to be the number 2 starter. Like, they added 4 or 5 guys because they weren't having to pay Juan Soto. That's a situation you're in. Carson Beck is Juan Soto with one bad arm and not nearly as good. That's where you are. And it's
like, what would you rather have? Like, would you rather have one of these quarterbacks that I think most of these guys I don't think are as good as Jackson Arnold.
Yeah.
And also Eric Singleton and also Horatio Field. I mean, you talk about like putting an impact on your offense, like goodness gracious. So to me, I just, once again, I can't stress it enough. Like, Auburn did really well.
You brought in
this portal
tackles.
window.
You probably don't
tackles.
Get both tackles if you have to pay $4 million for a Carson Beck. Like, that's the thing here is, would you rather do Beck for $4 million or Arnold and Singleton and Xavier Chaplin or Mason Murphy and Horatio Fields? Like, give me the 4 guys, since you don't really have that much. You have that many more spots you can give to players in football than you do in baseball. Give me multiple guys who are all well above average, and let's go. That's how that's how this works.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Let us know your thoughts on this whole NIL situation down below. I think Auburn's navigated as good as anyone. Seriously, I've been impressed. I've been impressed for sure. Speaking of getting talent, man, they got a stud. The newest addition of the 2026 class, Devin Carter. Why we love him and his game next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Lindsay, can you imagine buying tickets to anything and not using the Game Time app?
I have a confession to make.
Okay.
I have bought tickets from a place other than Game Time, and you know what it did to me? It resolved me to never do it again.
You spent too much money, didn't you?
I not only spent too much money, but the seats weren't very good seats. I didn't know what the seats were going to be. And I got all hyped up when I put the tickets in my cart. Oh, yes, I'm spending this much on these tickets. And then I got to the end, and there was all these extra fees and all this extra stuff. And
they didn't have the option to toggle the all-in pricing?
Nope.
From the get-go?
And I had to pay full price because I didn't get a discount code for using it for the first time.
All right, well, don't be like Lindsay. Clearly, don't be like Lindsay. Download the Game Time app. Use code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, LOCKEDONCollege, for $20 off your first purchase over at Game Time for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. When you look at Auburn's 2026 class, it just keeps getting better and better and better. And look, the 2026 recruiting cycle is about to really heat up with the portal stuff being done. So Devin Carter joins, and according to On3, Devin Carter is the highest ranked player in Auburn's 2026 class. And he also joins Denarius Gray as the other wide receiver, but Devin Carter, Gray, Hezekiah Harris, Shadarius Tootle, Michael Garrett, and Wayne Henry, all part of this class. And it's already a nice mix of positions, already a nice mix of, different states that they're from. The thing about Devin Carter that's just so obvious when you look at his game, it's like this guy's playing against the highest level of competition in all of high school football across the country. You talk about that Atlanta area, and the dude's just running past them over and over and over again. We talked about this with Sam Turner too. The context a little different because Sam Turner in this year's class, who moved in this past weekend with the other guys, he was underranked. But it's like you would pull up Sam Turner and he's just running past dudes. And it's like, I don't care what you're ranked. You're going up against dudes that are being recruited by every college in the country and you're whooping them every Friday night. I don't care. Devin Carter's doing the same thing. probably a little faster than Sam Turner. Whatever. Give me all of those guys that just have a knack of getting behind defenders. Sign me up. Devin Carter, so glad you're in this class.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing that I love is like the bloodlines are great. He was a track guy, so he was super fast, but the bloodlines are great. His dad, back when I was a kid, his dad was a running back at Florida State. First round draft pick in 1990, played for the 49ers and the Jets, won a Super Bowl, Super Bowl 29, and his brother played at Georgia Southern. So like he's had somebody go
in his blood, baby.
Recently. He's had a NFL dad who has a Super Bowl ring. Like that's awesome. And so it's those.
I've always said, just sorry to interrupt. I've always said that kids whose fathers played in Super Bowl 29 have always just like been dogs. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Of all of the Super Bowls to have a kid, like of all Super Bowl winners to have a kid, the Super Bowl 29 class is right above Super Bowl 33. It's like 29, 33, 50 feet of crap, everything else. And so, and like I've always said, if you're going to have a sibling play in college football, but do it 5 or 6 years before you do, like graduate 5 or 6 years before you get there, Georgia Southern's the school to do it at. Georgia Southern in the late 2010s is just dynastic bloodlines.
Like Devin Carter checks all those boxes that are super specific.
Yes. I mean, what are the odds that this job application could be filled by anybody but Devin Carter?
It's like Devin Carter was born to just be this elite football player. Now, all joking aside, I mean, we talked about the importance of stacking classes and, the way Auburn handled the wide receiver position this past year with Sam Turner and then, Derek and Eric Smith. Like they got their dudes, but it seems like this is going to kind of be a class that they're going to be super focused on adding some talented receivers because, obviously 2 years ago they added the Freeze 4. And so I think it's going to be fun to see what the finished product looks like as far as stacking 3 really solid receiving classes. Yes.
Fun question for you. Who is playing for the national championship this season?
Notre Dame and Ohio State.
Fun fact, both of those schools offered Devin Carter. He's coming to Auburn instead.
How about that?
Yeah. Brian Hartline's one of like the most well-known wide receiver coaches, right? Alabama wanted him. Clemson wanted him. Florida, Georgia wanted him. All of these great schools. State.
Yeah, right.
Boom. Nope. He's coming to Auburn. That's always good. You love that.
Yeah, I do love that. I do absolutely love that. So the whole like shakeup of this 2026 class, according to On3, they're the 5th ranked class in the country. They're 3rd in the SEC. And if they just hold serve, I mean, we've got a long way to go. Way to go. But already 6 guys that you're already super, super excited about. All of them kind of seem to be all in. So that's exciting. I mean, Auburn's done a really good job of holding on to players. Just like,
that's
whether guys currently on the roster or guys who are committed. I don't think that can be overstated, especially when the narrative for like the last 6 months of 2024 was, Auburn's got a top class, but wait till they all decommit. And like they never did. It just never happened. And I think that matters. And so Devin Carter coming in and being the top player in this class at this point of the cycle is very, very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, it's having a class that good, including some reinforcements at wide receiver in a season where you could have a couple guys go pro after that year is definitely great. It's a well-balanced class so far. Not a quarterback in there. Most schools don't have their quarterback for 26 in the fold yet. You feel good about it potentially getting even higher depending on who the quarterback is you bring in.
Yeah, and you look at that's an interesting point. Like after this year, so when these guys will be freshmen next year, Horatio Fields, we'll see if Eric Singleton's here or not. He's got eligibility left, I'm pretty sure. But it would be all guys that the staff brought in through the high school ranks.
Yep.
Which is the goal.
Mm-hmm.
Takes a while to get there, but that's the goal. And I think that's something kind of in the somewhat short term, like looking forward to. It's like, man, Cam, Perry, Malcolm, Bryce, and then Derek and Eric Smith, Sam Turner, and then you got Denarius Gray and Devin Carter. It's like, that's a year from now? Like, that's a room,
really
dude.
good room.
That's a room.
really good room.
And it's like stacking classes. It's like, that's what this looks like. How fun. How fun.
It kind of reminds me of the whole blue chip ratio thing.
Yeah,
kind of getting back in the blue chip ratio. Yep.
Yeah, that's why that matters for sure. For sure. What else is going on in your world, man?
Listen, Braves Today podcast 5 days a week, man. We are just pounding out the great content. Had a bonus show on Saturday. It went really well. First pitch. So MLB recap show every single morning it comes out, and working on some really fun Auburn baseball stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just a couple weeks away from that.
This week. Yeah. May be happening this week. So got to dot some I's and cross some T's, but that could be coming up. Hey, please like this video. Please subscribe. Go check out everything over at thebarnauburn.com. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.